Hello, YouTube, and welcome to the next round of overly pretentious Christian bullshit. And this time, I'd like to give a shout out to Guinea Pig Dan, who requested this story be covered on my intro video, and I never really got around to reading it until now, so sorry, but better late than never, and thank you for your support. Who can doubt the real presence? On the evening of the last day of his October 1995 visit to the United States, Pope John Paul II was scheduled to greet the seminarians at St. Mary's Seminary in Baltimore. It had been a very full day, beginning with Mass at the Oriole Park in Camden Yards, followed by a parade through the downtown streets, a visit to the Basilica of the Assumption, the first cathedral in the country, lunch at the local soup kitchen run by the Catholic Charities, a prayer service at the Cathedral of Mary Our Queen in the North Baltimore area, and finally a quick stop at St. Mary's Seminary. Schedule was so tight, so the plan was to simply greet the seminarians while they stood outside on the steps. But Pope John Paul II made his way through their ranks and into the building. His plan was first to make a visit to the Blessed Sacrament. When his wishes were made known, security personnel quickly flew into action ahead of the Pope. Their activities included a sweep of the building, paying closest attention to the chapel, where Pope John Paul II would be praying. For this purpose, highly trained dogs were used to detect any persons who might be present. The dogs are trained to locate living people in collapsed buildings after earthquakes and other disasters. These intelligent and eager canines went through their rounds in the halls, offices, and classrooms quickly, and were then sent into the chapel. They went up and down the aisles and past the pews, and finally into the side chapel, where the Blessed Sacrament is reserved. Upon reaching the tabernacle, the dogs sniffed and whined and pointed, refusing to leave. They were convinced that they discovered someone there and firmly remained, their attention riveted to the tabernacle until someone called out by the handlers. "We Catholics know they were right. They found a real living person in the tabernacle." And what do you know? This thing actually has an official, albeit quite shady source. This is actually reprinted from a Catholic journal called Michael, the August to September 2004 issues, to be specific. But don't get me wrong, I'm still going to tear this thing to shreds. You just wait. Now, I did as much looking into the background information as possible, including what the Pope believed and his visits to various places, and it turns out that at least the information in the story is plausible. The setting and the time period happened to coincide with one of his visits in Baltimore, which I have to say is, well, a good change from the other stories that I've covered, which give you fuck all in terms of detail. And to be honest, I can't really rip on John Paul II quite as much as I have ripped on other Christian protagonists in the previous messed up Christian stories I've covered, because while I don't agree with a lot of things he believes, he actually made the effort to make peace with other religions and the LGBT community, and I thought he was an overall decent person, even though, like I said, our beliefs may not have been the same. And for you atheists who think I'm sucking up to the Catholics in my audience, well, think about it this way. At least John Paul II was a hell of a lot better than the asshole Pope Ratzinger that we have now. You know what I'm saying? But before I get into the crux of the whole story here, I have to ask one question that's been bugging my mind quite a lot with the Catholic popes in general. And that is that if they really believe that God is on their side and they're like messengers of God or something, then why do they need so much protection? Like, popes drive around in cars that have bulletproof glass, for crying out loud, and a security team for the Pope. So if God is really watching over you, why the hell do you need so much security to protect you? Anyways, enough stalling. Let's get to the main point of this story, which is that these dogs, which were part of the security team, that were sent to detect human presence, detected something near the tabernacle, and it is implied that it was probably the body of Jesus Christ, or something like that. What I don't really understand about theists in general, and even though I technically was one, I still don't understand why I saw things the way I did. And that is that why do you automatically assume that just because something looks like it could be evidence for your God, that it is? Like, there are so many alternative explanations for many things that seem like they have supernatural causes, and guess what? So far, at least 90% of the time, things that tended to look like they had supernatural causes really did have an explainable, probable, naturalistic cause. And for the rest of the 10% that we can't explain, it doesn't automatically necessitate the intervention of some deity, you know? And I've said this so many times. People are tired of me repeating this again and again. But it still bears explaining, apparently, that if this exact same story was told from the perspective of a rival theist, maybe with a few details changed, like names and maybe places, would it sound at all believable to Christians if everything was the exact same except for maybe a few names and places? I don't think so. This story, once again, falls under the category of unfalsifiable, and I find that to be a really nasty habit that theists in general tend to make. These unfalsifiable claims, or stories containing unfalsifiable evidences, or unfalsifiable events that might have happened, and then look to me smugly and say, disprove that, asshole, and if I can't, then they go, hoo-hoo, I win! Looks like God really does exist. And it's not only the fact that all these alternative supernatural explanations could just as easily explain these exact set of circumstances, but a whole list of naturalistic explanations could also easily fit these circumstances. Maybe the dogs weren't properly trained. Maybe they were distracted. I don't know. A whole bunch of these things could more easily fit these circumstances and can be more easily proven or disproven than God done it. This one is not quite as crazy as the other ones I've had, but don't you worry, there's more to come. And once again, I'd like to give thanks to Guinea Pig Dan. Thank you for watching. Keep those suggestions coming, and may the truth always be heard.